me and the rest.
As Garvey takes a strike to the roar of the crowd. That is only the 79th pitch of the ball game thrown by Trout. Trout traded from the White Sox, and Dallas Green told Billy Connors, "This is your project." And indeed, he's made that quite a project. Connors then spoke to Jack Ty, who said Steve had a great arm just like his dad Dizzy. If he likes you, he'll run through the wall. Well, evidently, there must be an admiration society there somewhere.
Over the last 2 winters, Don, Steve Trout has been to Florida to see Billy Connors in the offseason.
Well, he's learned to pitch. With the White Sox, he was more of a thrower.
Right back to Trout. To Durham, 1 goal. And that'll bring on Kevin McReynolds.
You know how I like to see my pitcher grab the ball, run to first base, and give that first baseman that easy throw rather than to do anything else.
How about the first out of every inning, Earl?
Oh, that's a big one with a 2-run lead.
Yes, sir. Here's Kevin McReynolds. Bounces short. In a line drive sacrifice fly was out of fielder's choice.
Well, Billy Connors told Steve Trout that if you don't mature with your attitude, then you're just going to be a fringe guy and go from club to club.
1 ball and no strikes. Don't forget Game 2 of the American League Championship playoffs coming up tonight from Royal Stadium. The Tigers and the Royals. That'll be 8 o'clock Eastern, and we will be back with you tomorrow night from Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego. Game 3 of these National League Championship Series. That'll be 8 o'clock Eastern.
No, I can tell you as a ball player, when the crowd gets going and all the adrenaline gets pumping, it certainly does help a ball player. I'm sure that it's going to help Steve Trout here in this 9th inning.
Well, Jody Davis just ran out and told Trout to don't get fined now. We cannot get hurt until a man gets on base.
That's outside. 3-1 the count.
Sometimes the harder you want to throw a strike, the harder it becomes.
Well, I'm sure he's excited right now.
Time call. That's high, but time was called.
Oh, my.
Time was called.
Third base umpire called time, and Boa spotted it, and so did Jody Davis. We might be back to a 3-1 count and nobody on base.
That's exactly what it is.
You're going to get a rhubarb here.
Instead of the tying run coming to the plate, there was no pitch.
I'm kind of waiting for Dick Williams to come out of that dugout.
Well, he called it in
time.
I think Dick saw him call it, too. He's looking right out there at him.
Well, we know Dick saw him call it, or he'd be out there. Another break for the Chicago Cubs.
Yes, it was.
Possible break. It will depend on what Trout does right here.
He walks him anyway. So McReynolds is aboard, and that'll bring on Martinez.
Now you look from one dugout and you look to the other one because you look for Jim Fry.
He's not going to hesitate.
And you're going to see Jim Fry. And you've got the big right-hander Lee Smith in the bullpen. Trout did not throw that last ball well at all.
Seemed to aim it.
And they won't even have a conversation, so they'll have a pitching change with a break in the action. 1 out, top of the 9th. The tying run at the plate, 4-2 Chicago. Sandra Trout right now hoping that the big man on the mound, Lee Smith, can do what he's done so well all year long and pick up a victory for her husband here this afternoon. You see Lee, 69 appearances on the regular season, 33 saves, a record of 9-7, and a 3.65 ERA. So we have another switch. Davey Lopes has moved into play right field. So you might have a little double switch right here.
Well, the manager's already got his mind made up before that inning starts. I'm sure Jim Fry had his mind made up. If a man got on, he was going to make the move. That way you're not going to be indecisive. You know exactly what you're going to do, and it didn't take Fry long to get out of the dugout.
It'll be Martinez, the scheduled hitter, with Kennedy on deck. That's the story. There's 1 out, 1 on. And we're in the top of the 9th inning. The Cubs on top by 2. The tying run at the plate in Martinez, a young man that was in the Cub organization, moving over to the Padres in the deal this spring. As you see, Martinez 1 for 3 this afternoon. He singled his first time at bat up the middle, but after that, he has grounded twice to Boa, and that is what he doesn't want right here.
You know, I will say that the San Diego Padres have had their chances today, Don. They have not gotten the base hit in order to break the Camel's back, but they have certainly had their opportunities.
On that outside corner, 0-1.
And there won't be any mystery about what Smith is going to try to do. He's going to try to overpower him. The pitch was 97 miles an hour.
They've had him clocked at over 100 miles an hour this year in San Francisco, or else I'm sure that Mr. Martinez is geared and ready.
Pops him up foul. That'll be out of play and just below us. So the count very quickly is 0-2. You talk about 97, and that one was 99, going in and out of the shadows. How do you like that?
I tell you, there are not very many pitchers in all of baseball that throw any harder than that. If there are, then I haven't heard very much about it.
And yet Martinez, to me, looked like he had that bat around it. You know, just didn't miss it by much.
I know Jack Morris was up around 96, 97 last night, and Gossage and Ryan can get up there, but you're not going to see much harder than this guy's throwing.
Well, Durham is holding a runner on, and I don't see much sense in that.
Just outside as the crowd comes to their feet. So they do a little wishful umpiring here.
Look at that ball go in and out of the sunlight, and I mean just missed it. 100 miles an hour. This man is 6'6".
Got him on a breaking pitch.
That's almost impossible to hit that ball right there. You've got to gear up to hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and if he throws you a curveball or anything off speed, you just have to hope that you either don't swing or it's so far outside that it's not a strike. But that ball happened to be on the plate and was a strike as well.
On the corner, knee high.
Oh, my.
Now here's Terry Kennedy. 0 for 3 this afternoon.
They're on their feet here, Don.
They're ready, and they're geared and poised. Down low. Oh, a low strike and a late call. 0-1 the count.
That was not a good pitch.
Look at this call. Watch for his right hand.
A little closer than I thought, but I still think it was low out of the strike zone.
He still hasn't called it yet.
And now Durham is way back at first base.
100 miles an hour.
Out of play, left side.
And now he's got him in a hole, a ball and 2 strikes. And I'm sure that Terry Kennedy is aware of the breaking balls that Lee Smith has. I'll tell you, as a hitter, you can forget the breaking ball. They're on their feet and they're screaming, Don.
Oh, I'll tell you, they're ready to go. They want their Cubs to go out to San Diego 2-0. They'll take their chances from there. To left field, hit well, going back Cotto to the wall, but he'll have the play and makes the catch. So the congratulations for Lee Smith as he saves it for Steve Trout, who pitched a whale of a ball game. It sent Cotto to the wall as the Cubs jump out to a commanding lead in the second game of the series. The Cubs 4, the Padres 2. Crowd still on their feet. They refuse to go. And once again, the final score, the Cubs 4, the Padres 2. Be sure to join ABC Sports later tonight for Game 2 of the American League Championship Series as the Kansas City Royals host the Detroit Tigers live at 8 o'clock Eastern Time from Royal Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. And tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, it's Game 3 of the National League Championship Series as the Cubs try for a sweep at the series. It'll move to Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego, California. The executive producer for ABC Sports is Roone Arledge. Coverage of today's game was produced by Dennis Lewin, directed by Ken Fouts, technical director Mike Blazo, associate director Jimmy Roberts. Stay tuned for ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. This ABC Sports exclusive has been brought to you by Chevrolet. Drive today Chevy, live today Chevy. By Stroh's and Stroh's Light, proud sponsors of the Stroh's Run for Liberty. By Prestone 2 Antifreeze, America goes with Prestone. And by RCA, creators of video technology that excites the senses. Blimp provided by Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. Travel arrangements made through and a promotional fee paid by United Airlines. You're not just flying, you're flying the friendly skies. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, and we'll be back to talk with some of the Cubs right after these words.
We're with manager Jimmy Fry on the field, and Jimmy, this appears to be a replica of Sunday afternoon after the last game of the season. Nobody's leaving.
That's exactly right. Nobody's left. They're all waiting for him to come out. I don't think they're going to come out yet. We got a big hill to climb yet, Timmy. We got one more game to win. We win one more game, we'll have a lot of chances to do some celebrating.
You obviously remember back in 1982 when California won their first 2 games at home and went to Milwaukee and lost 3 in a row.
And some others. I can remember some World Series where we thought we had people buried and they come back to beat us. So until you get that last out, you ought not to be celebrating.
And the same rotation is going to stand pat for San Diego?
I'm going to go with Eckersley, probably Sanderson in the 4th game now.
No thoughts of coming back with Sutcliffe in game 4?
Well, I don't have to be specific now, so I'm going to hedge a little bit. We'll see how it goes.
And we'll see how it goes back with Don Drysdale in the booth. Donald?
Thank you very much, Timmy. And right here with me is Richie Phillips, of course, the representative for the Major League umpires. And Richie, can you tell us what is happening so far?
Well, I had a 3-hour meeting with Bobby Brown last night, the president of the American League, and this afternoon, right after the ball game, I'm going to be meeting with Chub Feeney. I'm making every effort that I can to try to bring this thing to the ultimate resolution. I need some cooperation from the baseball people. I think that at some time they're going to come to a realization of the contribution that the umpires make to the game, and they'll compensate them accordingly, Don.
I think the biggest story that we have heard down on the field from the players is, why did they wait this long? How could this happen?
I don't know why they've waited this long. I think they're stonewalling us to give a message to the players because they've got the player negotiations coming up this year. They're very concerned about it. They just negotiated the $200 million a year TV package. The players are looking for a third of that, and they realize they've got a big battle ahead, and they want to show the players how firm and tough they are.
In other words, you think this is a showcase to the players that they will be firm here and it will not have any effect, they will not cowtail, you might say, to them on their negotiations?
There's no question about that, Don. They feel as though if they capitulate to the umpires, it's going to be a signal to the players that they're wide open for the players that come after them hard. I think if they can show that they're going to stonewall us here, they give a message to the players that they're going to be tough in the negotiations next year.
Well, Richie, good luck in your negotiations. We hope you get it settled very quickly.
I hope so too, Don. I'd like to see our guys get back out there umpiring. I'd like to see quality baseball. The American fans deserve it.
Thank you very much. Right now, let's go back down to Tim McCarver.
Don Drysdale, before this interview started, Steve Trout told me that it could have been better today. How in the world could you have pitched any better?
Well, I wanted to go 9. I wanted to go the distance because it means something to me right now, but I was not pitching aggressively in the 9th. I was aiming the ball, and I just couldn't throw it for a strike. I think Jody was trying to get me to stay tucked, and I thought my mechanics were real good, but I wasn't aggressive. I was trying to spot the ball too much, and I think I got a little out of my game plan, was what I was doing for 8 solid innings, and I was aiming the ball, and, you know, I just couldn't throw a strike.
Why did it mean that much more to you to have a complete game today?
Well, because I didn't pitch that many complete games last year, and it's important for me to stay out there for the duration of the game because I've trained real hard for everything, and I know that I can go it. And this is something special because I had a lot of friends in stands.
And, of course, I guess you did what you wanted to today by keeping the ball in play on the ground. You only struck out 2, but you only walked 2 also, but you made the Padres put the ball in play on the ground.
Yeah, the walk to Wiggins, it really hurt me, and he ended up scoring, and that's going to be the case most of the time. But my game is just to let them hit ground balls and let Rhino, and hopefully they hit it to somebody. You know, I've had games where they've hit the plate and bounced up, and I've let a few runs in. But basically, I'm taking my chances with my ground ball, and hopefully they hit it to somebody. And with Rhino and Boa playing up the middle, you know, those two guys are extremely defensive players, and along with their offense. But still, I got to take my chances with that.
Steve Trout took his chances today in an 8 1/3 inning, striking out 2 and allowing only 2 runs as the Cubs beat the Padres 4-2. Now let's go back up to the booth to Don Drysdale.
Well, thank you very much, Timmy. And of course, when you look at this crowd, and if you've witnessed any of these crowds around Wrigley Field throughout the course of the year, you will notice that they just don't leave. They stay, they linger, they enjoy, they savor. It's been 39 years since they've had a chance to do anything. As a matter of fact, it was really almost 39 years to the day that they picked up their first victory, and that was in the 1945 series against the Detroit Tigers. So you've got to know that, guys. Earl and Reggie, you've got to appreciate that fact.
Well, I certainly can appreciate what Steve Trout is talking about. He was talking so fast and trying to get so many things in because he's just surely excited the way this crowd has been reacted, the way the Cubs have played. And it shows when he starts to talk, he's just trying to say 4 or 5 things at one time. That's because they're winning.
Well, he did a tremendous job on the mound today. I don't know how he could expect to have pitched any better. I thought he pitched an outstanding ball game. He stayed within his game plan. A couple times during the ball game, we saw him start to overthrow, but regained his composure, kept the ball down. Again, I say that the man throws over 90 miles an hour. He can go by some hitters up when he's pitching well, and he did today.
You know, when he was in the American League, he threw just as hard as he did today, 94, 95 miles an hour once in a while, but he would get flustered. He would lose control. They say since he has gotten married, since he has talked to the new pitching coach here, Billy Connors, he's been down to Florida a couple times to get his game together. I saw today that he does have his pitching game together.
Well, don't forget, he did indeed have that game together, but tonight it'll be game 2 of the American League Championship Series from Royal Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. It'll be the Tigers and, of course, the Kansas City Royals. And don't forget, tomorrow night will be coming your way 8 o'clock Eastern. Tonight is 8 Eastern. Tomorrow 8 Eastern with the National League Championship Series. That is game 3, and the Cubs, of course, will be trying to close it out right there. But I've just got a gut feeling that the Padres, when they get back home in their own ballpark and they get their own fans behind them, as we've witnessed here this afternoon, they're going to have some things to say. I think they're not going to just roll over. It will not be that easy.
I certainly agree with you, Don. You know, when a lot of the Cub hitters leave this particular ballpark here in Wrigley Field, they're not quite the same. Leon Durham, a man with 23 home runs, hit 19 here and hit 326 here, hit only 228 on the road.
Well, it's going to make a difference. Now I think we'll be seeing Eric Shaw in the 4th game. If there is a 4th game Saturday, Fry hedged a little bit. He's got a little something to play with, and he can afford to give Sutcliffe that little extra day.
Well, don't forget to stay tuned for tonight's game, the Royals and the Tigers from Kansas City. For Reggie and Earl and Tim, I'm Don Drysdale saying good afternoon from Chicago.
Diego, the Chicago Cubs are on the move. Good afternoon, everyone. Like a steamroller without brakes, the Cubs flattened the San Diego Padres for the 2nd day in a row. The score wasn't as astronomical as yesterday, but the victory was every bit as sweet. Now it's 2 down and 1 to go, and Chicago has gone Cub crazy. Sea of red and Cubby blue outside Wrigley Field just before game time. Cub fever reaching epidemic proportions. These fans were ready for another showstopper, and their team didn't let them down. This is one of the great plays for which the fans were waiting.
Left center. Martinez over, and it'll go off of the wall. Slow picking it up, and Zimmer's going to wave him on around. The relay to Wiggins. That throw to the plate. By Kennedy. Run scores. Over to third is Say. 2-0. Chicago.
How sweet it is, too. And though the Cubs did not win quite as big as they did yesterday, winning was the name of the game. They beat the Padres today Tim Weigel is out at the ballpark right now with some highlights for us. Tim?
Linda and Joel, it is wonderful out here. You said the score wasn't quite as big as yesterday. We don't care if it's 1-0, do we, Jay Johnstone? Just so the final score puts the Cubs on top.
Well, today we put on our defensive shoes by all those fine defensive plays you saw out there.
Well, the fans were into it. You're up 2-0 now. It's almost going to be, well, it's not impossible, of course. San Diego can come back, but this team just appears to be the team of destiny, Jay. It seems nobody can get in their way and stop them.
You know, this is our home park. We had to win the 2 games here. I mean, we came out with the idea we've got to beat them 2 in a row. Score early was our game plan. Keep Gossage out of the way. Today we did everything right. We scored again early. We made some great defensive plays, and we had some great base running.
Well, that's true. It doesn't matter if Bruce Gossage comes in and you're up 8-0. Let's go to some of the highlights now. Joel and Linda showed you a couple of them. We've got a slew of them in a 4-2 victory for the Cubs. And the big one really in the first inning, Bob Dernier often running on the ground ball to third baseman Salazar. And he goes all the way from first to third on an infield out. Key play, he comes in and scores on a Gary Matthews ground ball. Then we take you to the third inning. Ron Say with the double here. Did you think that Moreland was going to score in this one, Jay?
This is a great play by Don Zimmer because a good throw gets him out, but Don Zimmer's always been an offensive third base coach, and he showed it right there.
All right, Steve Garvey has 15th RBI in the playoffs. He is now 2 ahead of Sarge Matthews and Ron Say, and he drives in the run there to make the score 4-2. But you were talking to me a moment ago about how Jim Fry worked well by pulling Trout out there in the 9th inning. He got the victory, but Lee Smith got the save.
Well, that too, but I think the key point for us in the game is when he left Steve Trout in to pitch to Kurt Bavacqua, because what happens is Champ Summers has hit Lee Smith well, and he left Bavacqua in, and he turned out Bavacqua hit into the double play, got him out of an inning, and we went on to win the game.
And then, of course, when Steve walked the guy, he brings him out, and Lee was throwing smoke today. It's good to see that he had his good stuff. You're going to need that.
You got the shadows here in the 9th inning. It's tough to hit anybody. I mean, my mom could pitch out here when those shadows are out there, and you bring Lee Smith in, we got a great feeling on the bench.
I saw Terry Kennedy up there. His knees were knocking a little bit. Oh, don't throw it inside on me, Lee. Well, I talked to Bobby Dernier just a few moments ago here on the sidelines. Let's listen to what Bobby had to say about the victory.
Of course, really, everybody contributed, and we're real happy to be leaving here 2-0.
Well, I mean, absolutely. They said they had to split, at least get one of these games. They haven't. So how can it looks like you're really in the driver's seat?
Well, their back's up against the wall now, and they have a lot of pride over there. And our backs have been against the wall this season, and we've battled back. So I wouldn't count the Padres out. We got to play the same with the same intensity and go out there and hopefully close it out Thursday.
Bobby, you look around here. This is pretty magical, isn't it, all these people?
Yeah, it is. It's terrific. You know, it really pumps you up, and when a few of the people up there are your relatives, then it really gets you going.
It's got a few people in the stands who are relatives. Bob Dernier said, Jay, that there's no chance they're going to let up. There's too much talent, too much pride.
Well, no, we've got them on a run now. We want to bury it. We want to get it over as quick as possible. Obviously, we'd like to win the next game, and we're going to go out there with that intention, but we'll just see what happens.
What a wonderful postseason we're looking forward to here. Playoffs and World Series. We're going to be back with lots more from Wrigley Field a little bit later on in the newscast. But meanwhile, back to Joel and Linda in the studio.
You bet. Thanks, Tim. Tim had the story, of course, of what went on inside Wrigley Field today. Right now, Mary Ann Childers can tell us what's going on outside the park right now. Mary Ann.
Joel, just to be a sportscaster for the playoffs and to be where Tim Weigel is on the inside, there's nothing more frustrating than to be standing out here just a couple of 100 yards from the ballpark. And when the roar grows, I tell you, the roar goes up, the ground literally shakes here. The crowd's beginning to filter out of the ballpark now, but you know, it's really been amazingly slow. Just a short time ago, about the bottom of the 9th, hardly anybody was walking on the streets here. It was amazingly quiet. The few people who were out here were standing next to cars, listening to radios, or they had little mini television sets, and they were watching what was going on. And right now, the streets are crowded with people, but pretty soon they're going to be crowded with cars. It's going to be terminal gridlock in this area. Addison, as far as I can see, just to the west of the ballpark, is lined with limousines. But even if you're a bigwig and you have a limo, you might be waiting in luxury. It's not going to help you get away from the park any faster. There are also buses down the other side of Addison. So it's really going to be congested here in just a very short time. As we've heard, most of the fans still inside the ballpark. Now, it's not only been crowded down here on the ground, but it's also been very crowded up in the sky today. At one point, there were as many as 6 of those little single-engine planes, the kind with banners, saying everything from congratulations to the Cubs to paid political announcements. We also had the Goodyear blimp. If you watched the game, you saw shots from the blimp, and the blimp was really moving because while the winds didn't affect the game very much, the blimp was suffering from those winds all over the park. There were also helicopters reporters. And in fact, to add to the traffic up there is our own Skycam. Jim Avila is up in Skycam, and he has an overview of what's happening and that traffic situation. Jim?
Thanks, Marianne. Unfortunately for us, as we get up here, of course, the blimp is on its way away. And now we're looking down onto Wrigley Field. You can see Wrigley Field is at this point still a lot of people on the third baseline, and there's not anybody really rushing to get away from Wrigley Field. Even down here around Sheffield and Addison, you can see that there's large groups of people that are just going to be here to party for a while. They might as well, because as we look outside, we can see that the Addison Street on the way to the Kennedy is jammed, mostly with inbound cars coming to pick people up. And also the L trains are beginning to get moving too. So we can see that a lot of people up here are still just enjoying the game and enjoying the after effects of this game, and also just savoring this Cub victory. As we say, the parties are going on mostly at Waveland and Sheffield, and also at Sheffield and Addison, and that ought to continue for some time. Reporting live from Skycam, I'm Jim Avila. Now back to you, Marianne.
Okay, Jim, something's happening that's kind of interesting. The few fans that are coming out of the ballpark now aren't leaving the area. They're staying here. They're talking among themselves. They're also buying souvenirs. The vendors are making out very well today. You know, this party really never really stopped from yesterday. It continued through the night, and that's the reason that some are angry at the Cubs management today. That's because dozens of die-hard fans spent this night dozing, sleeping, trying to sleep in sleeping bags on the sidewalk just outside the Wrigley Field ticket windows. Now, some tickets had been sold there before Game 1 yesterday, and these enthusiastic fans waited for Game 2 tickets. It wasn't very comfortable. The temperature dropped to a chilly and rather damp 51 degrees. But for a chance to see their beloved Cubs, no one was complaining. Not until later this morning, when it was announced that no tickets at all were available. The faithful felt jilted.
People have been lined up here waiting to get in, you know, and now they just come up and say there's no tickets, you know. But I can't understand why they didn't say the standing room only, because these are our true fans right here in Chicago, right here.
I got here at 10 o'clock last night.
When the real Cub fans are in there, all of Addison and Clark shake.
That's right.
Yesterday, it was so subdued. It was so subdued. I thought I was watching Catholic television or something.
When Cub general manager Dallas Green arrived, the fans called for standing room tickets. Green didn't respond, and the crowd remained ticketless. Well, it's not hard to understand the controversy, especially because I mentioned the limos. There are a lot of dignitaries and bigwigs and people who suddenly have developed an interest in the Cubs because they're doing so fantastically. Some famous names are here today, as well as celebrities. Jay Levine was inside the ballpark earlier today. Right now, he's positioned just across the ballpark from me, over at, well, directly across the field. And let's go to him now for a live report. Jay?
Marianne, we have been inside the ballpark, we have been outside the ballpark, we are across the street, we have been in between, and the spirit here and everywhere else is much the same. As Tim Weigel mentioned just a few moments ago, a great number of Cub fans are still in the stadium. They are waiting for the players to come out of the dugout to be interviewed by the hundreds of media representatives who are here. Some people who have indeed left the park, and they are filtering their way out onto the street. You can see right now at the corner of Waveland and Sheffield, you can see the people that are gathered there at the corner, some trying to get into the local bars, just some kind of hanging around and enjoying the atmosphere. All the way down the street, people are stretched out, but it is an amiable crowd, as police officers have been telling us for a good part of the last several days. This is a happy crowd singing "Go Cubs Go" and just really having a good time. We'll be having a chance to visit with some of them later. But when you take a look at the makeup of the crowd, Cub fever, we find, is not limited to the north side or even to the Chicago area. It's spread a lot further than that.
Land of the free and the home of the brave.
Bobby Vinton wasn't the only familiar, famous face in the crowd. They've come from all over the country, indeed all over the world. One of Chicago's biggest boosters owns a pizza parlor in London, England. You come all the way from London for this?
Hey, wait a second. If you're a real Chicagoan, you come from wherever you are to get here for a game. Absolutely. We waited too long for this.
How many Cubs fans are there in London?
They think Chicago's just gangsters. We got to tell them now it's baseball. They don't even know what baseball is.
Others, long gone, remember their Chicago roots. Would you have paid for this one?
Oh, absolutely. I'd have paid scalpers prices to watch this. Are you kidding?
Some are recent converts.
The GOAT is home. I had him here yesterday, and the Cubs won 13-0. I had him opening day. They won 8-0.
Why didn't you bring him again?
Well, I was waiting.
Trying to jinx us?
No.
We don't win today. It's his fault for not bringing the goat.
I think you're in trouble.
Yes, I am.
There are Los Angeles comedians.
The Cubs are still funny. I mean, I think I laughed as much yesterday as I've ever laughed at any Cub game.
And there are Washington humorists. Was this worth waiting for?
No, I don't believe in 39 years of suffering. I've heard the theory that suffering builds character. Cub fans have quite enough character already, thank you.
Well, let me give you a quick idea of where we are. Bill Murray enjoyed the game every last drop of it, just as he apparently enjoyed last night as well. A rapidly emptying out Wrigley Field is across the street. What we see are the fans over here who are singing and having a good time. I think I would be lynched if I had not shown you these people up here on the bleachers across the street. But we have here the fan who may have come the longest distance from on this roof anyway. How long have you been a Cub fan?
A long time.
And are there moments that top this?
This is the tops.
Where have you come from?
Fort Wayne, Indiana.
When did you get here?
Last week, or today.
This morning?
This morning.
And? Was it worth it?
Oh, every bit of it. Very nice.
Well, thank you. We've got a lot more people up here who think it was more than worth it to watch the game from up here on the bleachers. Some people up over there behind Pat, but we haven't got time to show them to you now. A Cubs victory appreciated, to say the least, across the street here. Marianne, this is one side of the park, and you're back on a fast emptying Wrigley Field on the other. How's it over there?
That's right, Jake. Great hat, incidentally. Well, it's getting more and more crowded over here. There are so many people that cars are trapped into parking lots, and if you can look over here, you can see some people are sort of there. It's almost like a tailgating situation, not by choice, but they're going to have to wait until all these cars move. Well, the party continues here at Wrigley Field. It's going to be going on throughout our newscasts. We'll be back with more live reports. Reporting from Wrigley Field, Marianne Childers. Back to Joel in London studio.
Thanks very much, Marianne. Yes, more Cubs a little bit later on. There's also plenty of other...
It was worth the wait. 8 presidents and a man on the moon later, Cub fans have a winner. It's a tribute to you. You're the reason why. All through this unforgettable summer, the 1984 Cubs have lived up to the standards you deserve. And we've been proud to capture it all on sports pages that live up to these same high standards. It's a tribute.
And we'll have a World Series in Chicago. The Cubs did it again today. They beat the Padres at Wrigley Field. Right now, the Cubs are getting ready to leave for California, where they're going to finish the playoff series. Today's game was more defense than big hits. But victory was just as sweet as the Cubs took Game 2 of the National League playoffs. The Cubs, now accustomed to winning, seem to take it all in stride. But the fans simply went wild. And the final score, Chicago 4, San Diego 2. Kim Peterson is out at Wrigley Field, where the Cubs are preparing at this moment to board buses for O'Hare Airport. Kim, what's going on?
How you doing, Floyd? You know what, you're right, because it's the fans and the members of the news media who are going crazy about this win today, and actually crazy about the fact the Cubs got here at all, being so excited for them. But the Cubs players are not downplaying it, but they're being very, very cautious not to get too overly excited. Stranger things have happened when a team was down 0-2 like the Padres are. They could come back. I mean, the Cubs know that. They know they're a good ball club. But talk about fan excitement right down behind me here on Waveland on the outside of the park on the north side. Those are fans down there gathered just to try to get a glimpse through the smoke-covered windows of the buses of the Cubbies as they come out of the locker room and board those buses right now. There are a lot of Cubs players on there now. They'll be leaving any minute now for the airport, where their charter flight leaves at 7 o'clock to go on to San Diego. And the fans just cannot get enough of these Cubs. They've been out there since the game was over just to see if they could get a peek at some of the Cubs players. The Cubs excited about this coming up contest later on this week in San Diego, but the Cubs are really looking forward to putting away the Padres tomorrow night.
One thing we can't do is go out there to San Diego and you know, take them and, you know, just be relaxed. We can't do that. We're going to go at them like we want to get this thing over with as quick as possible. We can come back and have a few days off, and we can look at the Tigers and the Royals play a few games, and we can get some rest ourselves, because it's been a long year. And myself right now, I think I can have a couple of days off as far as swinging that bat, get some things together. But, you know, we can clinch it tomorrow. That'll be outstanding for us.
We're not ready to bury them. We still need one more win, and they have a lot of pride and a lot of veteran ball players over there, and they do have their backs up against the wall. But we've been there, maybe not to this extent, but when you're in that position, you tend to play maybe even better and definitely harder. So we want to keep the same intensity level and go out there and hopefully close it out tomorrow night.
Well, once again, it's the fans who are going crazy, and the Cubs are showing an awful lot of class with all this pressure, all this media attention, and they're handling this very, very well. I think that is a credit to some of the older players on the club, as well as a guy like Jim Fry and Dallas Green, who know how to win. They've been there before, and it's a feeling that permeates this entire ball club, from the coaches and the players, the bat boys. Everybody is just very, very excited about this team, but they're holding it down. When the time comes, they'll go crazy like they did that very special Monday night when we had a chance to be in Pittsburgh and watch the Cubs go bananas in the locker room. Anyway, the bus leaves in just a couple of minutes. A couple of charter buses to the airport, a 7 o'clock flight. They'll be in San Diego at 9 o'clock. And then tomorrow night on Channel 7, we will have the Game 3, which may be the deciding game to put the Cubs for the first time in 39 years into the World Series. Live along Waveland at Wrigley Field, I'm Kim Peterson, Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Floyd?
Thank you, Kim. Next time, I hope you can get a little more enthusiastic about it.
I'll do my best.
Too bad the Cubs can't take all their fans with them to California. Today, their enthusiasm, as usual, was contagious. And Marianne Childers has that story. Marianne?
Thank you, Floyd. A big contrast on this side of Wrigley Field. The crowd has thinned out. Most everybody's gone home. It's very quiet. It's almost back to normal. Normal being before Cubs fever gripped the Wrigleyville area. All the fans have gone home except for a handful, including the fans who've been waiting outside for so long. The outsiders who didn't have tickets to these two wonderful playoff games. But you know, Floyd, for those people who were outside, any seat on the inside would have been a great seat.
Another gate open over here. All right.
No complaints today from those in the bleachers, although they weren't the Wrigley regular bleacher bums. Instead of T-shirts, lots of white shirts and suits. No matter if the employees are playing hooky, the boss probably is too. Among the faithful fans were the famous. Chicago favorite Bobby Vinton sang the national anthem.
And the home of the brave.
Our Padre busters were cheered on by a real live Ghostbuster, actor Bill Murray.
How's it going?
Billy Goat Tavern owner Sam Cianis was in his seat, but without the goat today. And while many Chicago journalists were covering the Cubs,
You lose
others,
the subject,
lucky
you lose
ones,
spotter.
got a day off.
We've had the character-building joy of defeat. Now we want the decadence of victory.
Outside, those who missed the game were still entertained as they shared the spirit of the ballpark. There were saxophone players and jugglers, some bursting with Cubs fever, others just taking advantage of this captive crowd. Steve Dahl and Gary Meyer debuted on WLS-AM radio, live from the ballpark.
The guy that we're going to have out in San Diego, around the station, he looks normal.
And we should point out the Cubs weren't the only winners. The vendors, the souvenir sellers who were outside of Wrigley Field did okay. This was the view if you took the CTA-L to the ballpark this afternoon. Sort of a street carnival, a movable circus, lots of things to buy. Well, now at this late hour, all the souvenir vendors have folded up their T-shirts. They've rolled up the banners, and they've gone home. One last note, Floyd. I've been watching the air over the ballpark. I think Wrigley Field is probably on a flight path to and from O'Hare. But, you know, it seems like this afternoon those big commercial jets are flying awfully low. Maybe those pilots are just giving all the passengers a little view of Wrigley Field, where so much has happened that's so important to Chicago. Well, our Cubs are headed to San Diego. I'm going to head back to the station. Floyd, back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Marianne. Great job. The Cubs are working very hard for their success, but they're making it very hard for all of us to do our work. The temptation is the strongest at the colleges around the state, where Chicago students are more worried about hits than homework. Alan Krzyzewski with that story.
It could be any bar in Chicago, but it's not. In fact, these Cub fans are more than 60 miles away from Wrigley Field in DeKalb, Illinois. But they're diehard Cub fans wherever they're from.
They're going to kill San Diego. And then whoever they play next, I hope they can do as best as they can.
Sure, it's a work day, but don't tell that to the students, store owners, or even the local undertaker. They're all here with the Cubs. Work can wait.
Are you normally open during this time? In other words,
we're open. I'm just not there.
Oh, so your business is open, but you're watching a Cubs game.
That's right.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, they know the number. They can call me if they need me.
Here at Northern Illinois University, even the Huskies are playing second fiddle to the Cubbies. And the only homework assignment on the minds of many students is to learn how well the Cubs are doing.
All over campus, the soap operas are off and the Cubs are on. All eyes on the hits and the outs.
You got 10 minutes before a big accounting exam, and you're here watching the Cubs?
Right.
Either you're very good in accounting or you're a pretty big Cubs fan.
Hopefully a little of both.
Jane Farmer may be the biggest fan on campus. She's a library assistant, but her office could be a Cubs shrine.
This is our way of paying tribute to a great team at 84.
Even the men in Sigma Nu are saluting the men in blue. And like one student says, you have to have priorities. And they're the Cubs. Alan Kraszewski, Channel 7.
The Cubs are leaving for their trip to San Diego. Tim, what's the latest out there?
Well, the latest is, Floyd, the Cubs are on the bus, and they're on the way to O'Hare for a charter flight to San Diego, where they plan to wrap up this National League playoff series out there tomorrow night. They took a good step toward wrapping it up today at Wrigley Field. Just like yesterday, the Cubs took charge in the very first inning. Bob Denier got him a run. Then they got a big hit in the third inning. Ron Cey, the Penguin, the man with playoff and World Series experience with the Dodgers. He's making it happen now for the Cubs. He drives this one in the alley. Good coaching at third base by Don Zimmer. He says the Cubs already have a lead. Let's send Keith Moreland anyway, and it's all of a sudden 2-0 as the throw skips by Terry Kennedy. Steve Trout very strong today, 8 1/3 innings, allowed only 5 hits. He had the sinker ball working. Here he retires Steve Garvey in the 9th inning. He does it all by himself, runs it over to Bull Durham. He gave way to Lee Smith, and the Cubs came out with a 4-2 triumph. It was exciting. Mike Adamle and I sat and watched it. We're running out of superlatives, but the Cubs look absolutely unstoppable right now.
Well, I think there's one key, Tim. You know, like it has been all season long, the Cubs offense has been predicated on aggressiveness, not just at the plate, but on the bases as well during these first 2 playoff games. Today, a perfect case in point. The Cubs jumped out in front early, and triggering the charge was the dynamic daily double combination of Bob Denier and Ryan Sandberg.
I struggled to get a jump to try to steal, and Thurman has a deceptive move, and Rhino hit the ball, and I was running, so I peeked, and Salazar really didn't look at me, so I just kept on running. And Garvey doesn't have the best arm in the league. He's a very attentive first baseman, though, and he was expecting. I think he put a pretty good throw on the base, but I just had too good a jump.
Bob, that set the tone for the whole game. You get them going like that. That's what you've been doing all year long, and it set the Cubs up as being completely in control.
Well, that's part of our plan. We want to try to get ahead early, regardless of the method. And when we get ahead early and Rainbow's throwing ground balls, Smitty comes out of the pen, closes the door. It was an outstanding win for us, really. Everybody contributed, and we're real happy to be leaving here 2-0.
And he's done that several times this year. If he's running on the 3-2 count and there's a ball hit to deep third or deep short, and they make the long throw across the infield, Dernier's the kind of guy that can get to third base on most first basemen.
Was that a key as far as you're concerned?
It was a very big thing for us to jump out front, I thought, today. What yesterday's game did to influence today's, I didn't think was very much. However, when you jump out ahead today, then, of course, you hope that that has some effect on the other ball club.
I'm sure it's had an effect on the Padres.
Manager Jim Fry is not much for statistics, but this statistic, I think, tells the tale of the first 2 games. In addition to Sutcliffe and Trout, the Padres, Alan Wiggins and Tony Gwynn, their leadoff hitters, are 2 for 16. They've scored 2 runs. Denier and Sandberg, 8 for 14, and they have scored 7 of the Cubs' 17 runs in these first 2 games, and that's been a big difference.
It sure has, Mike. You know, you have to wonder how the Padres feel now. They've been shellacked 2 games. We talked to some of the Padre players about their reaction going into San Diego down 2 games. Let's listen to what they had to say.
We can't wait around for them to give us something. We have to try to take charge and turn around. We're going back in our own park, and there could be no tomorrow. Each one could be the end.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going back. That's where we've played some great baseball this year, and we've got our 10th player, the fans behind us. Looking forward to playing in front of them tomorrow night.
Steve Garvey looks a little flat, doesn't he? I think, Mike, it's pretty obvious. It's going to be the Cubs against the Tigers in the World Series. What a great series that's going to be. Last night, the Tigers jumped all over Kansas City. We've got Rick Sutcliffe. They have who?
Jack Morris,
right.
The man who no-hit the Sox last season. He is their ace. He can get the job done, too. And like the San Diego Padres, although it's not proving out so far, like you mentioned, Tim, the Tigers and the Cubs match up very well. Watch this great catch up here by Kirk Gibson, a la Keith Moreland in yesterday's game.
Right, very similar. Bases loaded. about it. It's unbelievable, the parallels. And, of course, we keep hearkening back to 1945 when the Cubs and Tigers played in that World Series. That, of course, a home run by Larry Herndon, and Alan Trammell had a couple. So we really got a lot to be excited about. What are we going to do for an encore?
Two great ballparks, Tiger Stadium and Wrigley Field, and a lot of power on both teams.
And, of course, we have the Sting tonight going for the Soccer Bowl championship. They're playing up in Toronto, and we'll have highlights tonight at 10. You're going to catch a plane to San Diego, and then I'm going to be joining them out there. Floyd, I don't know if we can keep track of all this stuff that's going on now. We're really getting at loose ends.
Well, Timmy, I want to say thanks to you two and to everybody who's worked that story out there. It's been a tough assignment, and you've done great work.
Well, Floyd, it's an easy job to do when it's so exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll be right back.